evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of Race 14, Season 60 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series here from the high banks of Talladega Super Speedway. It's the first playoff race for the Final Four. We are reaching the end of the season. The championship hangs in the balance. 2 races will decide it, and this is going to set the table for next week's season finale. I'm Seth Cole, being joined in the booth here tonight by a guy that we've seen a few times out on the racetrack here this season, but he's up here in the commentator's booth getting another perspective. Fellow broadcaster as well, Andrew Miller. And Andrew, here tonight, the field obviously whittled down again from 8 to 4 last week. We have our championship drivers, but that means that there's more drivers out there that they're not battling for a championship. The ratio very much so not in favor of those championship four. If you're one of those drivers right now and you have to maximize on points in 2 races, what is your strategy coming into tonight?
Oh boy. I mean, the guys that are fighting for this championship, they know how to get it done here at Talladega. They've won races, they won previous championships many a time. And I find that the consistent thing with them is that they are able to find their way to the front at different points. As I'm just getting some information from some of the drivers here. Alrighty.
Looks like we're waiting on our pole sitter to get on the racetrack here, and then they'll roll up. Oh, looks like maybe the pole sitter missed the start.
I couldn't tell if I was told that they were going to reset it or not. So that's why I kind of lost my train of thought there. But one way or another, those championship drivers are going to find their way to the front and avoid trouble, and that is going to be the middle of the pack.
Those 4 championship drivers, a couple of former champions, and Brian Schilling and Joe DeSpirito. Schilling, the most recent champion from 2 seasons ago in season 58, and then you've got 2 drivers. They're looking for their first championship of the series. Richard Martin and Rodney Sullins, who in the last, I believe, 3 seasons has made the Final Four twice. This is his 3rd appearance in the Final Four, 3-time winner on the year. Schilling, of course, winning last week, now a 3-time winner, and maybe has the momentum coming into this one. The lineup is a little bit shuffled with pole sitter Dante Ricky not making the grid. We're going to read off the grid of how they would have lined up nonetheless, though. Dante would have been the pole sitter, with Bernie Mobbs to the outside of row 1. Jeremy Jeffries and Mike Rogers would be row 2. Wiley Cope, Bob Seminero, row 3. Donnie Garrett and one of our final 4, Brian Schilling, going to roll off 8th on the outside of row 4. Richard Martin right behind him, another of the championship drivers. He's going to have Tim Nofsker with him in the top 10. JT Mayu and John Godfrey in row 6. Row 7 with Jerm Lewis and Ron Hacklin. Joe DeSpirito, multi-time former champion, back in the 15th position alongside of Brian Rawson. Josh Metallic and Chuck McClure going to make up row number 9, and the top 20 completed by the last of the championship 4, Rodney Sullins and Jeff Cravello. 21st place be Terry Bombard. 22nd, Grant Wesley, still looking for that first win on the season, is driver 88. 23rd beside Jones. 24th, Chris Emery, Jessica Shelton completing the top 25. Outside of row 13, Craig Hagley. Row 14 with Mark Paglia and Glenn Harris, and the top 30 completed with Greg Palmer and Ken Roberts. And then the Dixons, Bob on the inside, Tom on the outside in 31st and 32nd. Those are the 32 drivers taking the green flag here tonight in the first race of the final round of the playoffs. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about the uniqueness of this final round. It was implemented last season, and this season drivers kind of know what to expect. But it's 66 laps of racing here tonight at Dega, and we are green. Kind of an interesting half hour for Jeremy Jeffries. We were told prior to going live, Jeremy Jeffries was trying to hurry home from work, was not sure if he was going to make the start, and with Dante not starting the race, he's gifted the pole position.
Yeah, how about that? And he's going to take the early lead here, bring a bunch of guys with them to clear on that inside lane, although Donnie Garrett going to jump up to the outside, and already we are seeing shuffling. Mike Rogers starting in the top 5 and is already going to be bordering on the top 20 here by the end of this first lap. That's Talladega for you. And Now that 77 going to try to find some momentum on that outside lane.
A lot of drivers get the option when rolling off of pit road to voluntarily EOL themselves. Others, like you saw there with Mike Rogers, they'll move up to that third lane and drop to the back to, in essence, voluntarily EOL themselves. Different methods of getting to the back as Wiley Coate and Jeremy Jeffries clear on the bottom for the moment, but Donnie Garrett leading that outside line. Garrett's been close to victory lane a couple of times this season, just has not been able to close out the deal. You got the Florida gang there with Bernie Mobbs right behind him, Bob Seminara there as well in the 712. And then the highest running of our championship drivers on the inside line there is Richard Martin, but if he looks to his right, coming up on his right rear quarter panel is Brian Schilling. Now, mention the fact that this is a 2-race round. Normally, in a lot of series, you end up having the final race be a one-and-done, highest finisher of the championship 4 wins the championship, but there was a new system implemented here for the Talladega Challenge Series where 2 races in the final round. It's not even a win and you win the championship, because last season we had 2 of our championship 4 win the final 2 races of the season. It comes down to whom accumulates the most points in race 14 and race 15 of the 4 championship drivers that wins the championship for season 60. So here tonight, obviously a win would be awesome, but it's maximum points for those 4 particular drivers here this evening, because you don't want to go into that final race next week in a points deficit and maybe in a must-win situation. You don't want that kind of pressure on yourself.
Absolutely not. And that's why, like you said, these guys, I think they're going to want to try to get to the front. But some of these guys are getting a little antsy trying to do that. We almost went 4 wide. There was a big check up there, and that allowed a bunch of guys to gain some ground. And now sucker hole there for Mobbs and Seminara possibly. And I believe that's Rodney Solons there in the middle as well. So the inside line starting to charge ahead. And there's a good 4 or 5, possibly even 6 cars, or trucks rather, that are already clear on the inside. They might want to migrate up to the middle, and that is exactly what they do. That is where the grip is. That is the quickest way around this racetrack. Because when you're down there on the bottom, it is very, very slippery. You can move up the track very easily and potentially get into someone and cause problems. So while it's the shorter way around, it is not the most ideal in the draft.
Yep, we've talked about that too, especially off of turn 2. Usually the car, or in this case truck, gets really tight. You have to feather the throttle, and that loses you a lot of momentum down the back straightaway. We're focused here on Joe DeSpirito right now in the 6th position. He's second highest of the championship 4. Richard Martin right now in the 4th position is the highest. We talked about Rodney Sullivan stuck in the middle. There he is in the black, red, white, and blue Black Rifle Coffee 38, and just a couple trucks ahead of him is Brian Schilling. So you've got all 4 of the championship drivers up inside of the 15 and all running in that middle groove currently. You look at a lot of drivers up here. I mentioned about Grant Wesley. It's been a while since he went to victory lane. Last year's next to last race of the season. I was going to say last year's season finale, but that was actually Bob Seminara. Race 14 of last year was when Grant Wesley last went to victory lane. You look at some of these other drivers up here too. Jeremy Jeffries, it's been a while since we've seen him go to victory lane. Remember, he had that streak of 3 straight checkered flags at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway last season. Looking at Josh Metallic in the 39, been a long winless streak for him. We've seen some drivers snap some winless streaks here this season. We ended up seeing Mark Paglia go to victory lane, Craig Hagley go to victory lane, Ken Roberts go to victory lane. These are drivers that had not just multiple races, but multiple season winless streaks that they were able to snap. So, you know, you look at a driver like a Donnie Garrett or a Jeremy Jeffries or a Wiley Coate up here in our top 3, opportunity for them to maybe pick up a checkered flag tonight. And I know it's a catch-22, Andrew, when you get eliminated from the championship, but do you also get a little sense of relief in the following races, not having that hang over your head? You just have one goal, and that's try and organize a strategy that's going to win you this race. You don't necessarily have to constantly be thinking about points.
I think that it opens the door for you being able to maybe be a little more aggressive with maybe your fuel strategy, or or on the flip side, maybe you can just hang out at the back of the field. If the lotto queue doesn't go your way, you can just hang out back there, and then if something bad happens in front of you, you just lock it down and just kind of mosey your way through that. As you've probably seen, that has been my strategy in many of these races. But as far as just not having that pressure of fighting for the championship, I think that really does open the door um, for either playing it as conservative as you want or as aggressive as you want. Whereas if you're in championship contention, there's a middle ground that you have to try to find there to try to maximize points, but without putting yourself in a bad situation either.
We had originally said 32 drivers were scheduled to take the green flag tonight. We already know Dante
Oh, we got
Ricky
a crash.
and caution is going to wave. One up and over. That's Greg Palmer. Craig Hagley, former winner on the season. I think he might have been the first one that I saw there in the background that was sideways. Cy Jones in the 7, quite possibly as well. As I believe the leader has taken the yellow flag. They'll start coasting it here off of 2 in preparation for the pace truck. Well, pace truck's already on the back straightaway, so the FRN Chevrolet Silverado will pick them up more than likely going into turn 3. Pits will be open, no doubt. We'll probably see everybody on pit road. Better to make the pit stop here under caution than under green in the next 10 or so laps. Let's go back to turn, well, middle of 3 and 4, I think it was, and see what happened here with the 32 and the 22.
I will say this actually starts entering 3. Craig Hagley on the bottom. Looks like he just gets stuck on the transition and just can never quite get off of it. And Paglia is trying to stay off of him, and then just checks them all up behind them on that inside lane.
Wow. That was a pretty impressive amount of wheeling right there for the 32 to not spin it out right away. To your point, that started all the way over in the entrance to turn 3, and that thing never went around until just past the halfway point of 3 and 4. Kyle Busch would have been proud. But yeah, and then that check up there with Cy Jones getting into the back of Greg Palmer, and this is, I believe, what we would call a grip flip for the 22. Let's see, right there. Yep. Right side tires grip the racetrack. The downward momentum flips him over, though. We've mentioned a lot of different terms here this season in terms of like the super speedway racing. We've talked about a harmless wreck. We've talked about a harmless spin. That could very well be a case of a harmless flip. I don't see any indication where that would cause any aero damage, any engine damage. Palmer might be okay.
I don't think anyone's really going to be in bad shape after that. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just Hagley and Palmer that had big problems. I also want to send a shout out to Mark Paglia. They're on a great driving job of keeping it pointing straight, despite having a having an eye full of a sideways 32 in front of him. So credit there, but I think those guys should be okay.
There's that driving job by Paglia you were talking about. I mean, under normal circumstances, a car is out of shape in front of you. The first thought process is probably to slam on the brakes, but he kind of made sure to feather the brakes and maintain about the same amount of speed as the 32 did, and safely got himself down the apron to be able to avoid. Some nice piece of driving, to your point there, by Mark Paglia, not making that wreck any worse than it was. As pit road was open, some interesting plays going on here in the early going, because Brian Schilling is going to play the strategy of giving up a ton of track position to lead a lap, get the bonus point for a lap led. We talked about how it's not a win tonight, you win the championship. It's the most points accumulated at the end of this race and next week, and every point matters. Brian Schilling feeling that this lap led bonus point could be a difference maker next week.
And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's literally a 2-race season. That's what it is. The points are pretty much reset completely, and you just got 2 races to make as many points as you can. But of course, it being Talladega, you never know if on the last lap you take the white flag in third, and then you get swamped in the sucker hole, and next thing you know, you finish 15th. So these bonus points are definitely going to be valuable. But like you said, he's sacrificing track position for the sake of gaining these points. So could that pay off for him in the long run, or is that going to get him in trouble? Only one way to find out. And I'll also mention one last thing. I did watch Greg Palmer come down pit road, He either didn't fix the damage at all or didn't have any because his pit stop was not any slower whatsoever.
Yeah, it didn't really look like he got any damage visibly from that flip, so he should be good to go. We had 6 drivers that stayed out under that first lap of caution. The race leader, Brian Rawson, was one of them, and he stayed out an extra lap here to get a bonus point. The other drivers were, I believe, Craig Hagley, Cy Jones, Tom Dixon, Chuck McClure, and the aforementioned Brian Schilling. Subsequently, they'll be starting back outside of the top 20 with coming to pit road here under the second lap of caution, and more than likely Brian Rawson will be coming to pit road here on the next time around out of turn 4, which will put him deep in the field and would turn the race lead over to Joe DeSpirito. And typical of Rolling Thunder Gaming Series, in the Monday night Bare Bones Racing Series, Wednesday night Aero 88 Series, they have what's called the Challenger Series, kind of the battle within the battle, different championships won at the end of the season with the respective series, and we've talked about it all season long. Same deal here for the Talladega Challenge Series with the bracket series going on. Tonight, it's Joe DeSpirito versus Tim Nofsker. That's the finals. And I believe, if I'm correct in this, if Nofsker is able to better Joe DeSpirito here tonight, DeSpirito, by virtue of winning the winner's side of the bracket, would then take it into another battle next week in the finale to be able to try and win the bracket championship. But if DeSpirito beats Nofsker outright here tonight, then DeSpirito is the Season 60 Bracket Challenge champion. And right now, he's in the best
Battle within a
position
battle.
possible, right now in P1.
Yeah. I think actually I'm wanting to say that Wiley Coat may have actually beat him off pit road there. I think the scoring may have, I think Joe may have gotten ahead of him by accident.
Ah, okay.
But yep, looks like Coat will be leading here. He's going to choose the inside lane. That is definitely the preferred place to be. No choose cone in this series, of course. You just line up based on where you're scored.
What do you think this series would look like if there was a choose cone? Would anybody take the inside, or would they all be in the middle?
Oh, geez. You'd probably get a few guys on the inside, and then probably fourth place would be able to go to the outside and be like, all right, nice front row start for me.
Yeah, because it kind of seems like on starts and restarts, maybe the first 2 trucks on the inside, if they get a decent enough jump, they're able to clear the middle line off of turn 2, but third on back on the inside line, they're basically just hoping and praying a gap will open up to their right to be able to slot up into that middle groove. Speaking of a good start, we'll see if Wiley Coates able to do that. Wiley Coate, another driver, long winless streak here in the Talladega Challenge Series, trying to get Dodge, I believe it would be their 4th win on the season, the other 3 belonging to the 4 of Brian Schilling. So the way they're going to line up here, Wiley Coate, Joe DeSpirito the front row, Jeremy Jeffries, Donnie Garrett row 2, Bernie Mobbs will complete the top 5. Then Richard Martin would be 6th, Tim Nofsker in 7th, Josh Metallic, JT Mayhew, and Grant Wesley the top 10. You've got 2 of our championship 4 up inside of the top 10. You got to go all the way back to 15th to find Rodney Sullins, and Brian Schilling will restart back in the 19th position, but he'd be about maybe a half lap better on fuel than the drivers up ahead of him. All 30 drivers that took the green to start this race will take the green to restart this race at the conclusion of lap 12 onto lap 13.
I will also mention Bob Seminara is restarting second to last here. So watch out for that 712. I'm sure he's going to be wanting to make some moves.
Playing some strategy. He, along with Jeremy Jeffries, Greg Palmer, and John Godfrey, the 4 that were eliminated last week. Green flag in the air. Looked like that inside line. They were all trying to figure out the timing of when the green was going to fly and when the best time to bump would be. Oh, we got a spinner in the back. Mark Paglia just got spun, I think. Green
that is
remains
not going to be
out.
A yellow. Yeah, he kept it off the racing surface. That is not going to be a yellow, but I bet you that checkup according all the way to the back.
Bet you're right.
Probably caused that.
So Paglia going to have to hope that a yellow flag comes out to catch him back up here to the lead pack, as Middle line, got that momentum down the back straightaway. Despirito edged out ahead. Here comes the inside line through the entrance to the middle of the corner once again. But then it will transition the momentum to the outside here through the tri-oval, heading back to the start-finish line. Gonna be almost dead even. Wiley Cope might hold on and lead this lap here. He will by over half a truck length.
Wiley's got a great pusher in Jeremy Jeffries there. I've been pushed by him a fair amount of times, whether it's toward the front or wherever. And whoa, Wiley, that's not good. Oh, that is going to check up both lanes.
Checks up that middle line with Despirito having to give room to the 5, and then also Jeremy Jeffries having to half throttle it to make sure he doesn't hook the 5 in the left rear quarter panel. Got a third lane foreman back there. The Ford Raptor, Jessica Shelton. High, wide, and handsome. Now cracking into the top 10, bringing Brian Schilling, Chuck McClure along with her. Remember, Brian and Chuck came to pit road the second lap of caution, so they're trying to gain back the track position they lost on that strategy.
DMAR jumping up there with them now. This is going to be a really tight one here up at the front. But man, is that going to tighten up that inside lane. Again, just talking from experience running this season. That inside lane gets so tight off of turn 2, and especially when you're 3 wide, there's so little room for any kind of error. And golly, do these things want to push up. You really do have to either half throttle it or crank it a lot in order to keep it down there. But look at the 43 coming up here, might take the lead. As Despirito going to jump to the inside.
Big run, big push, nice and tight there in that outside line. Richard Martin looking to go to the front. Despirito, he's already led a lap here tonight, about to lead another one if Martin's not able to get him, but that'd be 2 of our championship 4 that have the bonus point in hand, and Martin wants to be the 3rd, and he's going to, I think he got it. I think he barely got it. So that's 75% of our championship 4 that have led a lap.
Trying to come down the lane as the 5 pushes up again as he's trying to bring Shelton down to that middle lane. Jeffrey's also pushing up. Ooh, Seth, I don't know if that's going to keep up. I don't know if they're going to be able to maintain this.
This is really tight, and we're about to have a scenario of 3 of our championship 4, 3 wide for the lead if Schilling gets up alongside the 43 and the 24. I'll tell you right now, I love where Rodney Sullins is at the moment, riding at the back of this pack, because you mentioned it, one wrong move could have absolute devastation for most of our championship drivers right now.
Yeah, And with them 3 wide like this, there's nowhere to go unless you're at the back, and then you can just jam on the brakes and let the chaos happen in front of you. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to hide unless you can somehow dive it down to the inside if you're on the inside lane. If you're in the middle or the top, the seas have to part, and that is a slim chance of happening.
But trucks are having a real difficult time on that inside line. Wiley Coates still riding up off of the bottom. Jeremy Jeffries a couple of times has pushed up there off of turn 2. Joe Despirito not getting the draft that he needs down the back straightaway, not getting the momentum is, wow, Despirito. I don't know if that's on your end too, but big time warp out of the 24. That is scary when you're up at the front.
Someone who's loving this is going to be the 43 and probably the 9.
Yep.
Because they're going to be able to get clear. But, Shelton. Ooh, thought about it there. Tried for the lead. And that's going to put Donnie Garrett in an awkward position. In the middle lane with no help. And Brian Schilling's going to, oh, goodness.
Cope was on the apron, and I think Joe's dropping to the back due to the warp issue.
Yeah, probably got told, yeah, you're warping a bit too much. As Garrett, that actually allowed Garrett to get down to the inside and save himself pretty much.
Well, you know, we talk so much about how super speedways, how they always seem to play their part into the storyline of the season, but you know, we have to consider as well that this is a sim, different drivers on different internet connections, and that has also played a big part into this season. I mean, consider the fact that, you know, we talk about Grant Wesley, a driver who in the past 4 seasons has won the championship, but he has not even won a race yet this season, did not advance into the playoffs, and near the end of the regular season, a big reason for that was he was having connection problems. He'd be up there at the front, he would fall out of the server, not be able to get those positions back, and you know, you see right there the connection problems for Joe Despirito. That could, here tonight, play a huge part into what kind of a position Despirito will be in trying to get what I believe would be his 7th championship, 6th or 7th championship of this series next week.
And now he's all the way at the back. He's got Seminara pushing him. But Schilling back up to the front here now and maybe trying to get some more bonus points if he's somehow able to lead the most laps.
That's right. Another bonus point hanging in the balance in that regard. Could be very important next week. And people are thinking, well, is it really that important? Well, I mentioned the fact that last year in the 2-race final round, Grant Wesley won the first race. Bob Seminara won the second race. Wesley beat Seminara by 3 points for the championship. So, yeah, every point is that important. Speaking of Wesley, dives to the inside there on Josh Metallic trying to lead that inside line.
Outside looking a little more fragmented. As going to be a big shove here for Wesley. Going to check up the inside a little bit. Cy Jones trying to lead a third lane a little bit further back. But I'm going to also give props here to Schilling. I mean, as we saw, pitted the second time, lost track position, pretty much started in the middle of the field, or restarted in the middle of the field, and now has already found himself up at the lead with the guy that he pitted with.
That's right.
Chuck McClure. So that was a great strategy for those guys, but that also just shows that once you get hooked up and you find a great pushing partner, you guys are going to be really, really tough to beat.
Catching up here on the 22 of Greg Palmer, so looks like maybe we were wrong. I guess there is some aero damage on that machine.
I think he may have actually been checked up by what happened to Paglia. That would be my guess.
Yep, that's... Actually, I'm wondering if potentially did... there is a system they have here where if you end up causing an incident that doesn't bring out a yellow, you have to serve a pass-through. Did maybe the 22 serve a pass-through for what happened at the rear of the field, and that's why he was caught?
I mean, he's only one lap down, so that was the first time he got lapped, so I don't think he did a pass-through. He either checked up, because his solo car speed is right on point. It's about 180, so I don't think it's damage. My only guess, I would have to go back and look, but my only guess is that, yeah, he probably got checked up by what happened with the 28 on the restart.
28 of Paglia, who had that spin on the restart, has also been put a lap down. So right now, Greg Palmer, Mark Paglia would be in line for the lucky dog positions if we were to get a yellow. We are about half a racetrack behind the 143 of Bob Dixon as well that lost the draft. So the two that I mentioned there, Paglia and Palmer, they're hoping for a caution sooner rather than later, because if Dixon gets lapped, then one of them would get knocked out of a lucky dog position. And I did get the confirmation. Joe Despirito is looking for his 7th championship of this series. So trying to pull a Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, Jimmy Johnson here in the Talladega Challenge Series. I mean, I'd be happy with just one championship. He's looking for his 7th. That is an unbelievable statistic.
Just got word that drivers right now expected to pit probably within the next 8 laps or so.
That'd be somewhere just a little bit before halfway. It's been a while since we've seen these drivers make a pit stop under green flag conditions. We always seem to get the yellow flag a couple of laps prior to when these drivers are getting themselves prepared. Last week, I thought that we were going to end up getting ourselves a green flag pit stop, and we had a random phantom caution. We never found out the reason for it. We went back, we looked at all the different replays, all the different angles. Nobody had an issue. There was nothing untoward. Just flagman decided he wanted to throw a yellow flag for something to do. Hopefully we don't have one of those here today at Talladega. How about Jeff Crivello in the 56? 4th position right now for the State Farm Radio Shack Dodge. He's going to get kind of shuffled out there by another fellow Ram and Wiley Coat, but up here inside of the top 5, having a great run here tonight.
Inside lanes are going to check up now, though. I will say, I was in that race, and according to one of the other drivers' radios, or his crew chief, it was apparently, and this is ironic, chunks of brake disc.
Really?
According to, I don't know if it was like a modded spotter pack or whatever, but apparently his spotter said it was brake chunks or brake debris or something like
So,
that caused that caution.
so I'm guessing that would have translated to a debris caution, which is still kind of odd. Normally, debris cautions only come out if somebody has an engine problem and aren't able to get off the track soon enough, or if somebody loses a tire and is out on the racetrack too long, and we didn't have any of those scenarios, so, huh.
Yeah, and Seth, I think you and I can maybe confirm the fact that that probably happens, one of those phantom cautions, maybe once every, like, I don't know, probably 10 or 12
Oh,
races
yeah.
that you and I do. And you and I race a fair bit,
Yep.
so it's a rarity.
It is very, very rare. Catches us off guard up here in the booth, too, because we're like, what did we miss?
Yeah.
I'm actually,
Didn't miss anything. It was one of the more bizarre cautions I think I've ever seen in the 6 years that I've been running this thing. Oh my God, it's been 6 years.
well, as you reminisce, how about some other drivers up here having some good runs this evening? 7 of Cy Jones. Last time by, scored in the 7th position, ironically. Mike Rogers. Good run for him here tonight in that 0-11. He was scored 9th last time by. I don't know if it's the case that maybe some of our big guns are just kind of riding here towards the back in preparation for pit stops, or maybe the slightly smaller field size this evening is giving those drivers we're used to seeing run middle to rear of the field a little bit more confidence to get up here to the front and try and get a checkered flag. But nice to see them up here being competitive here tonight. Could have an underdog story in the works here this evening. I believe, if I double check, yes, of the 4 playoff races that we've run so far this season, all 4 have been won by a then playoff driver. We're yet to have a non-playoff driver win a playoff race. Maybe tonight's the night.
Wouldn't surprise me. There are a lot of dark horses that I would watch out for in this thing, such as Crivello. Cy Jones is well experienced in these things. Brian Rawson, I've run with him in a few places. Even Glenn Harris, someone that can definitely get it done on these things when the cards fall in his favor. I will also mention the fact that we got everyone on the inside lane now. We're going to be getting pretty close to pit stops. I'm still getting further word that we'll be getting pretty close within the next 2-3 laps.
Brian Schilling and Chuck McClure, as we already documented, they came to pit road on the 2nd lap of the only caution we've had tonight, so they technically should be able to go 1 lap further, but with Brian Schilling being out in front for as long as he has been, this time by just led his 11th lap of the night, that would more than likely put him on the same fuel window as the drivers that came to pit road under the 1st lap of caution. So I think we've actually got some radios lighting up. Maybe the Dixons coming to pit road here?
We've got more than that.
Okay.
We got some front runners coming down.
Looks like Schilling, McClure, Metallic, Coates.
Ooh, good chunk here.
Oh, Jeremy Jeffries gets Wiley Coat. They were 3 wide coming in. 5's in the grass. Not out towards the racing surface, so we'll stay green. Tough break there for Wiley. He was up in the top 5. 5th or 6th position, I believe, when they dove onto pit lane.
Oh boy, now we're double wide, and we're going to have more guys desperately trying to come down.
We nearly had a wreck back there. Seminaire and Glenn Harris, I think, just had a little bumper grab, and the 8 almost was door banging the 9. Richard Martin going to lead in the 2nd group. Ronnie Sullins, Joe DeSpirito in this mix. Man, Joe really got wadded up there as they were almost 4 wide in front of him.
He actually nudged the wall coming on there.
A little bit.
They all keep it straight. Oh, no, they don't. Cy Jones and a few others just spun around.
Jerm Lewis is in the grass. Rodney Sullins was one of the drivers in that. One of our Championship 4. Can he get into his pit stall, though? Oh, look out. Crossing right in front of Bob Dixon. He is able to get into his stall.
Going to keep focused on this last pack that's going to pit here, led by Brian Rawson. See what they're able to do here.
Seminara, JT Mayhew in this group. Oh, contact!
Oh, crash!
Wow! Oh, Brian! Oh, gonna hit the inside wall. Gonna come back across the track. Craig Hagley's in the inside wall. I think we're still green. I think that's all considered off the racing surface. You see the flagman there doesn't have a red flag out, so I think we're still green. But that was a big hit for the Valvoline Ford.
Craig Hagley also spun it. And now we're going to see where everyone's going to cycle out here. But that could be a near race-ending incident there for Ross, and he's got a lot of damage.
It was hard to tell what exactly happened there off of 4. It was... I don't know if the 6 was planning on pitting or not. He was very high on the racetrack. Seminara was looking to his inside to come to pit road, and the two of them made contact, and it shot the 6 up into the outside wall. I don't even know how he was able to get that thing turned down to even try and attempt to make it to pit road, which I think is what he was doing before he hit that inside wall. But I think this is who the lead's going to cycle around to, the 4 of Brian Schilling, and... yeah, right there, I think that was the exchange for the race lead for next time around. Chuck McClure, Josh Metallic, and Tim Nofsker look like they're going to be the top 4. And this is an interesting scenario right now. I know we've still got half the race to go, but you know, these guys were working with Brian Schilling last week to get him up to the front. He was in a must-win situation to advance into the Final 4. They got him up there, and then they couldn't do anything with him to get around him for the race lead. I wonder if it comes down between these 4 here this week, if they're going to say, all right, we got you up here, but we're going to be making our moves a little bit earlier than 2 to go or the white flag lap, because you know, you don't need to have the win. You just need to have maximum points, and you've already led a lap, you've already led the most laps, so we're going to try and take this checkered flag here.
Yeah. I will point out Josh Metallic won at this track 2 days ago for their Tuesday series. In a fairly similar vein to what we're looking at right now. He was in a pack of only 4 cars at the end of that thing. That race went caution-free the entire way, and it came down to only 4 guys at the end, and Metallic was one of them. He was able to get it done. He's up there again. So... let's see what...
For those that might have seen it, Rodney Sullins came back down pit road. I'm assuming a black flag, probably for the 38. And he has been put a lap down, currently in the 24th position. That is one of our final 4 contenders. And we talked about it. The last thing you want to do is put yourself in a hole here today at Talladega and go into next week at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, a track that Sullins has 2 victories at here this season, 2 of his 3 victories at that venue, in a must-win situation with the championship hanging in the balance. So Sullins is going to need some help here if he's going to get back into this conversation. Joe DeSpirito, he has lost the lead pack. He's currently running over 9 seconds behind the race leader, leading looks like a 3rd pack right now in the 14th position. And Richard Martin is leading a very, very small pack here of 3. Himself, Grant Wesley, and the lap car of Rodney Sullins trying to catch up there to be the contender against Brian Schilling for the race lead and maybe for the points lead going into the finale next week.
I'm going to be keeping my eye on this pack led by JT Mayhew as he hits 201 down the straightaway here. But they were going to have some work to do, because when you have a pack of 5 cars, ooh, that's tough to catch, because that is like the perfect amount, I think at least, of speed with enough cars, but then also you don't have a big train, so there's not going to be a lot of checkups. I think that this pack of 5 with the lap car of Bob Dixon, I don't know if they're going to be able to catch them without a caution, as we are going to be 30 laps to go the next time by.
And if we don't have a caution, we've already seen pit road play a factor into our championship for once, in the case of Rodney Sullins, and maybe even to Joe DeSpirito, rather, with him having a very slow entrance to pit road with all the trucks that were in front of him. Pit road's going to have another thing to say here before all said and done, because there's no way anybody can make it on fuel. They're going to have at least one more pit stop they'll have to make. Looks like it'd probably be somewhere in the vicinity of 15, 16 to go when they would have to make said pit stop.
Most likely so. And so that should put them on one more stop, I think. My math serves me correctly. There might actually be 2 stops. I'm not sure. And now this field is going to be led by Richard Martin as they have caught up to that trio. And let's see, the gap right now, about 4 seconds between them and the leaders. So we'll see what they're able to do with that throughout
So
this run.
you saw right there, Jeremy Jeffries get put a lap down. I believe he ended up losing the pack, having to make a second pit stop, serving the penalty for the contact between himself and Wiley Coate at the entrance of pit road. Bob Dixon got put a lap down. Right now, he is the first truck 1 lap down, and I think Jeffries would be the second truck 1 lap down. That's bad news for Rodney Sullins because just about 2 laps ago, he was in a free pass position. Now he isn't, but this group that he's with is going to reel in the 1 truck very quickly. If he can get around Jeremy Jeffries, then he slots into Lucky Dog slot number 2 once again.
Keep my eye on the speeds between the 2 packs here. This second pack has a lot of heavy hitters here pushing each other. With the 43, the 88, 38, 712, and the 711. Talk about like an experienced bunch right there who know just how to push and just when to let off. I think that they may have a chance. They were 2/10 quicker the last lap. We'll see what it is here.
Yeah, 47.818 for the leader of that pack, Richard Martin, last time by, and I think it was a 48.0 for Brian Schilling. So, yeah, to your point, about a 2/10 this time by, though, 47.9 for Brian Schilling. Richard Martin with a 47.7, another 2/10 shaved off, so they are catching him.
And that could definitely make things exciting. The question is, are they going to have enough time before the pit stops,
right,
in order to get up there?
Which would, those pit stops would be somewhere around another 11 laps from now. They're currently 3.8 seconds back behind the leader, that second group. Trying to do the quick math in my head. I think that would put them about 1.6 seconds behind this group if they keep chipping away 2/10 each lap. Then again, though, if they're able to catch just a little bit of toe off the 143, that can translate to 3-4 tenths, even half a second of them being able to reel in these fast 4.
Yeah, that's true. They gained about 1/10.5 that time. And I'm trying to do the math in my head of like exactly when they pitted. I would have to imagine that it would probably be in about another 10
Yeah,
laps,
I think
probably.
so.
I think we're probably at the halfway point of this fuel run.
Big for Tim Knofsker here as well. That 4th place truck, mentioned he's the one taking on the winner's side of the bracket challenge, Joe DeSpirito. And with Joe mired back in 14th, Knofsker could very well win the first of the 2 battles between himself and DeSpirito and take it into another match next week during the season finale. A little bit of cleaning up here off of everything that occurred with that round of green flag pit stops. Brian Rawson, after the hard hit into the inside wall, he is the first driver out of the race. He'll get credited for 30th. We've got 21 drivers on the lead lap right now. 5 drivers a lap down in Bob Dixon, Bernie Mobbs, Rodney Sullins, Jeremy Jeffries, Cy Jones. And then 3 drivers 2 laps down, Jerm Lewis, Mark Paglia, and Greg Palmer. This is all a culmination of the stack up we had on the restart and everything that occurred on pit road during the first green flag cycle of pit stops. And we've still got that 1 pit stop left to go, so this is not over by a long shot. We can't say, good win Brian Schilling or good win any of these top 4, because if a yellow flag flies, that changes the entire landscape of this race.
Oh, that is very true. And as this run goes on, we were talking about that random debris caution from a couple races ago. Well, random engine failures as the run goes on are very, 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 well, I shouldn't say common, but not uncommon. They seem to happen like once every other race.
Yep.
And on these long green flag runs, they can absolutely occur. This field has been chipping about 2 or 3 tenths a lap the last couple. Yeah, and as you said, this is definitely far from over. 0.8, yep, another 10th that lap there.
And another thing, too, with these long green flag runs and the field spread out the way they are, you might look at it and say, well, there's no possible way that a yellow flag would come out. They're all running single file. But when you're in like this second pack back here, you already talked about with when you have a lot of trucks, you end up having the dreaded checkup, but also you kind of start to feel a little bit of desperation setting in as the laps tick away, and the pushes that you're giving to the driver in front of you, they start to become shoves. And there's another thing called bumper grab that commonly happens here at super speedways, and we've seen in the past stuff like that happen where two trucks will get together, and if one of them spins around, then that brings out the yellow flag and bunches everybody back up once again. As Grant Wesley right now doing a good job on the back bumper of the 43 of Richard Martin. Rodney Sullins right now, he is in a lucky dog position. Got around both Jeremy Jeffries and Bernie Mobbs. Bob Seminara right there. This is, I think, got to be a career year for John Godfrey. I know that he hasn't gone to victory lane this season, and he is a former winner in the Tally Challenge, but this year has been maybe his most consistent season of his entire career. He's 5th in overall points. He had a chance to advance into the Final Four. He missed out by just a few points last week. But top 5 in overall standings, a chance to finish 5th in the final season standings. I mean, this has been an unbelievable year for the driver of the 7-Eleven. Well done to him. A couple of other drivers that have also had some career years here. Richard Martin, I believe this is the first. I'll have to double check on this next week. But I believe this is the first appearance that DMAR has made in the Final Four since the playoff system was implemented. And you know, we ended up seeing a couple of seasons ago Rodney Sullins is like the dark horse of the Final Four. I feel like Richard Martin falls into that category, and yet we're seeing him up here tonight in the first race of the final round in the 5th position. He's been a mainstay in the top 10 all night long, and we know his super speedway experience. He just hasn't, I guess, had the breaks to be able to make his way up into a championship picture.
Yeah, because with this series, it probably literally is 50% skill, 50% luck, because you can do everything right, and then just through someone else is doing or one of those random cautions, and then next thing you know, everything just turns on its head. And that's happened to a lot of these guys. Honestly, I feel like that's happened to Mark Paglia a lot. Just look at tonight. And DMAR, I know that's happened to him plenty of times. So, but yeah, he is definitely a deserving driver to be in this Final Four. And I definitely would see him as being a factor in this race. If they catch, they probably are about a second away from sniffing a draft off of that 143.
Yeah, you can visibly see the gap closing up. Leaders there through the tri-oval. There is Richard Martin. I believe you only have to be 1.2 seconds behind another truck to be able to start getting the draft. So they've got about another maybe second and a half to catch up here before they'll start getting a little bit of slipstream off of that 143, and
they just gained almost half a second.
And this is about what, 3 laps away from when they're going to have to come to pit road. So it's right on the mark of them being right there with the top 4 when that final potential money stop on pit road is going to take place.
Yeah, this is going to be important because we're within 20 laps to go. This is pretty much the edge of the fuel window here. You can pit now, and you should be pretty good to make it to the end. The question is, do you want to short pit or do you want to stretch it? Because then you might have a shorter pit stop if you short pit, but you might end up with less drivers. Oh my gosh, they just gained a full half second that lap. They were going to be sniffing the draft here shortly.
Well, I believe
that was DMAR's fastest lap.
I believe if they came to pit road this next time around, they could make it. The window would be open to make it. They'd be at around 19 laps to go. And I think I'm seeing some radios lighting up here. Maybe some drivers are planning on coming to pit road right at the point that the window opens
Leaders
up
are coming. Leaders are coming.
Here we go.
It's the front guys.
We saw this last week as well. Bunch of drivers pitting at the end right when the window opened up. Some drivers came to pit road a couple laps later.
Second pack going to stay out here almost completely.
Donnie Garrett! And that might be a yellow. Oh, the green lights are still on. He's parked on the track. No oncoming traffic. Nope. We're still green.
Nearest guys are coming off of 4, and they're pitting. Led by Despirito. And looks like they're going to make it cleanly.
That was the closest we got to potentially having a yellow flag to bunch everybody back up. With no oncoming traffic, race officials say track is clear with the 77 rolling once again. Richard Martin going to inherit the race lead.
I will also say Richard Martin just ran on his fastest lap again that last lap. Now they got to keep it clean here. Watch out for the 011.
Whew.
A little conservative on pit entry there, but that was a nice, clean entry there for those guys. That was perfect.
I'll tell you who wasn't conservative. That was Grant Wesley. He just split the two slower machines in front of him, Mike Rogers and Tom Dixon, and he may have gained a ton of time on pit road because of that.
If he didn't speed.
If he didn't speed. Yeah, that's the thing.
I will say the pit entry here is very, very generous. It's the exit that gets you. I found that out the hard way on Tuesday. Yes, I'm salty about that. I went 56 for about 50 feet, and it bit me. Now, here we go. Chuck McClure is now leading this next pack. Chris Emery is now in this pack. With Nofsker and Metallic.
I think Emery
Where are they going to come out here?
I think Emery might be a lap down.
You'll merge them back on here. It's going to be a little messy.
Yeah, now that big group is going to have to all get organized again. While this top four are already organized.
I think they're going to be a little closer than they were.
Might be able
to
sniff the draft off the 39.
But man, there's going to be a lot of other lap machines in this thing now.
I think Wesley might be able to catch them. That aggressive pit road entry, if he didn't get a black flag, that might have allowed him to be able to merge with this top four.
And they're getting formed up behind them. They're going to sniff a draft off the 45. Tom Dixon.
Okay. I think Martin and Seminaire and Mobs. I think they're going to catch them. I think that the lap cars are spaced just right. That they're going to continually have draft to be able to reel in that front pack. I think they're going to have a shot at him.
And I will say, Chris Emery's not a lap down. He's a part of this thing, and he is actively going to be fourth once the cycle updates here.
Now I'm wondering if he's yet to pit then.
That's a good question, because I know that he was nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of strategy could he have played that gained him all that track position?
Or was he in that second pack? I actually can't remember. Because Wesley almost caught them. Came very, very close. Oh no! Wiley's gonna spin!
And he's coming not back up the surface. He's gonna stay below the yellow line.
But is that going to be a drive-through on the 88? I think it might be.
Wesley's dropping low.
Because I think that he was the one that hit him. But these guys have the leaders. Sullins, and then Mike Rogers, and then there's Richard Martin. I think that they're going to catch them here within the next few laps.
About 10 laps away from the proverbial point of no return, so still plenty can happen.
Wesley down pit road.
Tough break there for Grant. That money stop for him put him up in the draft of the top four. And now I'm not even sure a caution will be able to save him, because you've got Rodney Sullins, Mike Rogers, that are all up in this lead group right now. They're probably going to bypass him and knock him out of a lucky dog position. Tom Dixon's just barely hanging on to the draft of this lead group as well. Well, Brian Schilling is going to have 2 bonus points going into next week, because he's got the most laps led bonus point locked up, 27 laps led. There's nobody going to be able to beat that. Despirito has led a lap. Richard Martin has led a lap. The only driver of our Final Four that doesn't have a bonus point going into the finale next week would be Rodney Sullins, and it's unlikely he's going to get that bonus point, being the first truck 1 lap down.
Yeah, he's really, really hoping for that yellow flag right now. Let's see. Martin has caught up. Seminara's caught up. Bernie Mobbs is a lap down. And if John Godfrey is able to hold on to this pack, he would be the final truck to contend here should it stay green, and he would be 8th. So if John Godfrey can catch up, we will have an 8-truck battle for the win here should we stay green.
Looks like Grant Wesley, even after serving the pass-through, He might. No, I thought he was going to be able to maybe latch on to a group of 4 back there with Despirito, Bombard, Harris, and Hagelin, but looks like he was unable to. He's right now being scored in the 16th position, ahead of Donnie Garrett, who is the last car on the lead lap, and he is about 13 seconds ahead of the race leader, Chuck McClure.
We're already seeing some moves being made. Metallic's trying to get up there. Emery's going to go with him. And here comes Martin as well.
Well, if Emery had to come to pit road, he would have had to have pitted 2 laps ago. After this race is over, I want to go back and I want to see what kind of pit stop he had that got him up here, because he was nowhere to be found. And he was up there further than Grant Wesley, who had that monster entry on his pit stop. So I don't know what Emery was able to do, but whatever it was, it may be what ends up getting him to victory lane.
Now, I just had a theory pop into my head. And this is a long shot. But what if he only took a can and a half of fuel? He may have taken less fuel than the others, and that's what gained him the time, but that could put him in iffy territory for making it to the end. That's just speculation, purely. But he's going to take the lead here.
Oh, contact, little bumper grab there. Brian Schilling, Tim Nofsker trying to get formed back up again. They know they're outnumbered on that inside line. Boy, I think I've lost. I think I'm going on to my second hand and counting how many near cautions we've had here in the second half of this race.
And it started on the restart with the 28 going around.
It did. All the way back on, what was it, lap 13.
I mean, that also just shows, I mean, hey, they've been able to keep it green despite everything going on, which I think is both good driving and good sportsmanship on all these guys' parts, because like we saw with Donnie Garrett, he could have easily just parked it there and let the field catch him and let the caution come out.
It's going to be interesting to see what Richard Martin and Brian Schilling do here in these closing stages, because I know you want to get that victory, but look at the situation they're in right now. They've got Joe Despirito 24 seconds back in the 12th position. Rodney Sullins trapped a lap down in 19th. The last thing you want to do is throw away a top 5 finish, which both of them are in line for right now, get involved in a wreck, and give all those points you've gained on the other 2 competitors back in the closing stages of this race. Do you feel comfortable just riding in where you're at? Because you also know that these guys around you, like Emery, Metallic, McClure, they've got nothing to lose. They're not in the championship hunt. They're just looking for checkered flags here to close out the season. You know they're going to do everything offensively and defensively here on the final couple of laps, and you don't want to get caught up in the mess if something goes wrong.
If I'm in Richard Martin's position, I'm holding it there as long as I possibly can. I'm not going to be the first one to make a move. If McClure makes a move behind me and gets a bunch of guys to go with him, then I might consider, but I'm not making any aggressive moves to try to win this thing. I'm just going to push the 39 in the 000 here. Emery, of course, I know that he's probably going to be pretty aggressive to try to defend this lead. I've seen him make pretty bold moves before, and he's not afraid to do it. So this yellow truck here is going to be tough to pass. I'm calling it right now.
Well, right now with the lead lap trucks we have in this front group, if Schilling or Martin were to get shuffled out to the tail end, the worst they would finish here today would be 7th place. So it would still be inside of the top 10. We've got Emery, Metallic, Martin, McClure, Schilling, Nofsker, Seminara. Those are the 7 lead lap trucks in this pack. You've got lap machines intermingled with Rodney Sullins and Mike Rogers, Bernie Mobbs, and Donnie Garrett. I mean, they could definitely... Oh, look at this. We got some...
That's what I'm talking about.
Got some blocking going on here. Metallic shaded low. Emery throws the block, moves back up. Whoa, gracious.
There's still coming to 6 to go, guys. Hold on.
Yeah, we're not yet to that point of no return. That'd be around completion of lap 62. We're about 2 laps away from that.
Ooh, I knew Chris was going to be aggressive. And it's already happened. Ooh. Oh, boy.
Not going to be able to block that one. Metallic able to get to the inside, and he's got Richard Martin helping him. 3 wide, middle of the pack, almost 4 wide.
I can't blame Chris, though. You got a shot to win in a series this big. You got to go for it.
Might be wrong,
as you
but
said,
I believe Chris Emery has a former Super Speedway Series win here in RTG, just not in this series. I think it was over, I want to say in the Tuesday night series.
I think you're probably right. But look who just suddenly got in the picture here. Hello, 712.
Yep, and was running at the tail end of this pack for a majority of this run.
He's passed about 6 cars there.
Ooh, look at this.
He's going to be up to third, and here comes Demar.
Yep, shaded up to the outside. Looks like Seminara, Mobbs, Garrett, they're going to go with him. Richard Martin in the final 4, but he is the only driver of the Championship 4 that hasn't taken a checkered flag yet this season. Despirito has done it twice, Schilling 3 times, Sullins 3 times.
Now, here's the thing with these top 2 now, that being Richard Martin and Bob Seminara. You have 2 lap cars between you and Chuck McClure and everyone else. Oh, boy, how's that going to work?
Well, I think...
I
31 and a 77, aren't they part of the Florida gang there? So they'd stay committed to the 712. McClure trying to get Brian Schilling up here, and Nofsker once again. Metallic trying to catch up. Those were the 4 that had this race dominated for about 3/4 of the race.
Schilling's a great pusher, and now, they got the full company up there. They're going to probably end up steamrolling this inside.
I don't know why.
Demar's going to keep it in that lane.
Yeah, I would have thought that Martin would have moved up there to block that momentum going into 3, but no, he stays on the bottom.
Maybe that's what you said, just not going aggressive, because you know you're going to finish 7th at worst.
Don't take any unnecessary risks.
Oh boy, 3 to go.
Brian Schilling looking for 2 in a row, 4 wins on the season. He's tied right now for most with Rodney Sullins. That middle line, it's like they're trying to push that outside line a little bit up the racetrack there, stall out their momentum on the straightaways. Pretty even on the inside and outside line right now in terms of number of trucks.
And now we got 2 more in this thing with Greg Palmer and Craig Hagley. Ooh, man, great run there. Look at the 43 charge ahead. He's going to be able to dictate where he wants to go now. Whoa, Seminara.
They'll get around the outside of Mark Paglia. It'll be 2 laps to go. We usually give the disclaimer. We'll give it now. If a wreck occurs on this lap or the final lap, we'll go back. We'll look at it post-race, but we're staying here at the front, whether it's the race back to the caution and the white flag or the checkered flag. Look at Seminara almost making contact with McClure there on that inside line. It's what you got to do. You got to pinch high. You got to pinch low to be able to get the momentum for your respective lane down the straightaway. Still almost dead even, though, between McClure and Martin. Can they keep it together for 2 more corners and the straightaway to get back to the whites?
Looks like these guys should be able to do it. Emery with a desperation move down to the inside. No help. It's going to come down to, I think, one of these top 2.
Near contact again between Martin and McClure. McClure trying to pinch him down. White flag in the air. Richard Martin has led 8 laps. Can he lead the last one? McClure has led 5. Who's the better pusher is going to be the question here. Seminara on the bottom, Schilling on the top.
Is Seminara going to be content? Or is he going to try to make this a 2-horse race here? Outside lane charge and well ahead now.
Big push from Schilling to Chuck McClure, who may move down to the bottom to cover the 43. Ooh, 31
Ooh,
might be out of fuel as he's falling
boy, 17
back.
has a big lead.
Schilling with a big push from Nofsker. Can he get alongside the 17? Martin gonna battle here with Schilling to see who's gonna be the points leader going into next week in the finale, but it's Chuck McClure who's gonna pick up the win here tonight. Schilling got second, Martin in third. Those two could potentially be the favorites for the championship heading into next week, depending on what the points gap will be for Despirito and Sullins. But they kept it together.
They did a great job with it. Richard Martin, yep, was not super aggressive with the run that he had coming off of 4 there. Instead, he uh, just kind of stayed behind the 17 and probably played the points game there. I honestly think that was a very smart move. But congrats to McClure there. Sullins in 17th. It's not going to be a bad finish there. We did have a couple guys run out of fuel. We did confirm that Mobs did run out of fuel, as did JT Mayhew coming off of turn 4 as well. So a few guys were actually cutting it pretty close.
Chet McClure gonna bring it around here to the front straightaway. And he'll be burning it down. Becomes the first non-playoff driver to pick up a victory here during the playoffs. Now, he started out the playoffs in the hunt for the championship, but he got eliminated in the first round. Comes into this one 9th in points, the highest of all the drivers that were eliminated back in round 1. But this technically would be a non-playoff driver picking up a playoff victory. And Chuck McClure picking up his second win on the season, going back to the second race right here at Talladega here in season 60.
Well deserved. No surprise there with it coming down to the guys that it did. Again, I do have to send a shout out to Chris Emery for the great run that he had there. But of course, McClure gonna get it done there. And how about that? The top 4 all within less than a tenth of a second. Gotta love Talladega.
And I feel like this was a little bit of a receipt maybe from last week. Last week it was Chuck McClure who pushed Brian Schilling to the lead, eventually the victory that locked him into the Final Four. And maybe tonight was Brian Schilling saying, I owe you one, and he was the one that pushed Chuck McClure to the victory here this evening.
Yeah, very possible. But I'm sure that he was hoping to get the push there on the outside. But it's going to come up just a little bit short, and it's all 17. But man, one caution the entire race, but
Yes.
stuff happening everywhere throughout.
It makes you wonder, with the championship on the line, just what it's going to be like next week at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Mentioned that this is kind of the precursor. This kind of sets the stage for next week, and if tonight's any indication, you are not going to want to miss next week's season finale. We'll be talking with our top 3 in just a moment, but let's run down the rest of the finishing results. Tim Nofsker, looks like he and Joe Despirito, they'll take each other on in a rematch for the bracket challenge next week, as Nofsker was the highest finisher of the two in 4th. Bob Seminara bringing it home in the 5th position. Josh Metallic in 6th. We mentioned about Chris Emery there in 7th with an incredible final pit stop to be in the conversation for this win. He puts it 7th. Jessica Shelton going to bring it home in the 8th position, though we didn't really talk about her, John Godfrey, or JT Mayhew since they were back in that second group, but good runs for them here tonight. Ron Hagelin, 11th place for him. That's a lot of ones right there. 5 ones in a row. Glenn Harris in 12th. Terry Bombard in 13th. Joe Despirito and Grant Wesley going to bring it home in the 15th position. Jeff Crivello in 16th. Rodney Sellens will be the lowest finisher of the Final Four in 17th. Then Donnie Garrett, Mike Rogers, Bernie Mobbs, the top 20. You look at all the rest of these drivers, culmination of reasons that these drivers finished off the lead lap. Pit road being the major one. We had the Mark Paglia spin at the restart. We had the Donnie Garrett spin on pit road. But a lot of these drivers, though, did not get the benefit of the yellow flag and subsequently finished off the lead lap. 2 drivers did not reach the conclusion. Germ Lewis and Brian Rawson. All 4 drivers of our championship 4 came into this race tied. There were no bonus points that rolled over from the previous round or from the regular season. So based off of my rough math here, and of course, we'll get the confirmation before we go off the air, but it looks like Brian Schilling will have the points lead over Richard Martin, I believe, by 2 points. Because remember, Schilling and Martin both led a lap, but Schilling finishes one position higher and gets the bonus point for leading a race high 27 laps tonight. But that is a that is a super close points gap between those two heading into next week. And then Despirito will be probably somewhere around 13, 14 points back. Sullins will be probably about 18 points back. I don't know. What do you think, Andrew? With double digit points back, do we put the 24 and the 38 in the must win category for the championship next week?
Oof, I'm gonna say yes, just because I mean, Schilling and Martin, as we saw tonight, they they got to the final four for a reason. They're going to be up front, unless they end up in trouble. Then obviously the other two could definitely get into it, given possibly even just a top 10 finish. But if if the 4 and the 43 just keep it clean, then it's pretty much going to be win or bust for Despirito and Sullins. But it's going to be a good one to watch, though. I'm excited.
Well, next week, Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. It's kind of been the place where everything's been decided this season. It was the season opener, it was the regular season finale, it's been the elimination races for our round of what was 15 drivers and then our round of 8, and it will, of course, decide the championship next week. Two of Rodney Sullivan's 3 wins came at that racetrack, but both of Joe DeSpirito's wins this season have come at Talladega. So, with both those drivers potentially in a must win situation, be interesting to see if either one of them are going to be able to do something next week to get themselves back into the championship picture. But let's see if we can now dial up our podium finishers here tonight. And let's kick things off with the driver that brings it home third place this evening. That'd be one of our championship four, Richard Martin.
User was moved to
Hey,
your
Richard, Andrew,
channel.
and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we were trying to make some speculations up here about you, the four, what kind of strategy you were going to play in the closing stages. Obviously, I know that you'd love to get that checkered flag, but at the same time, you're battling for a championship, and it is most points in tonight and next week's race that ends up hoisting that championship trophy. So we saw you not block the run up there on the top side, stay committed to the middle. Were you maybe a little bit more conservative here tonight than you would have been under normal circumstances, knowing you needed those points?
100% conservative and trying to stay in the top 5, top 10 for the last 3, 4 weeks. To change anything tonight, just to race to it, just and we almost got there. Had some good help. I think Bob was behind me, and 31 was there, and something happened to the uh, Chuck came down. He made a good move and won.
Now, we've talked about how consistent your
User left your
season
channel.
has been. Obviously, coming into this one, the only only one of the final four that hasn't picked up a checkered flag, but
User was moved
the
to your
consistency
channel.
has been there, and based off of what we saw last season when this playoff format was implemented, the consistency has been what's won the championship. Your numbers have been very good as well at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. So, with getting this one race under your belt, getting this podium finish, what is the confidence level that we're going to see this 43 hoisting the championship trophy next week?
Well, Brian Chilling is a very good driver. There's no question about it, and he's going to be really tough. Um, luck has a lot to do with it. I think everybody's pretty much still in it, so I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing and hope for the best.
We also saw tonight that execution was a key factor. Obviously, a couple of times we thought maybe the race officials were going to throw the yellow, but nope, only one caution flag here tonight. Do you expect or plan for something similar next week in the finale, or do you think that maybe it'll be more about fuel strategy and pit strategy in between the flying of yellow flags?
I expect it to be more of the same. It's been that way pretty much for a while, so I expect it to be. I hope it's like it was. I just had to make good decisions. One of my problems, like I said, I think before, is the pits. I have to be very careful going in. Not that good of a hot pitter, so I usually lose a few spots coming in the pits, but I'm just going to try and stay consistent and see what we can do. Congratulations to Chuck. He did a great job.
Gonna see if my broadcast colleague Andrew's got any questions for you.
Not much that I can think of other than I guess just coming to the checkered flag there. You had a little bit of a run on the 17, but I mean, I guess kind of piggybacking off of what Seth asked earlier, would you have probably been a little bit more aggressive with Chuck there if you weren't running for the championship?
No, I don't think so, because I like to give those guys a little space. They're all great drivers that were up there, fighting for the lead, and I didn't want to cause any wrecks or anything like that or bump anybody. So, I'm very happy the way it turned out, and I'm glad Chuck won. And congrats to Brian too for having a good finish. Thank you guys.
Well, started this race from the ninth position, led some laps, and brings it home with a solid third place to kick off this final round of the playoffs. Richard, congratulations on a job well done. Before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Well, thank you, Seth and Andrew and Flatout Racing for broadcasting. I want to thank Bob Seminaire and the 31 again for staying behind me there at the end. There's just a lot. Grant did a lot, helped me a lot during this race, and I appreciate that. He was kind of helping me call the shots there because it's been a while since I've been in the Final Four, so I was just double checking with him a lot. And again, congratulations to Chuck, Brian. It was a great race, and we're still in it.
Absolutely still in it and might be able to win it next week in the finale. Richard Martin brings it home third place here this evening at Talladega Superspeedway. Congratulations once again. Best of luck next week, Richard.
Yeah, thank you to Josh and Tim and Bones and all the admins as well. Thank you.
Richard Martin, your third place finisher here
User
tonight.
was
He
moved
will be
out of your
2
channel.
points behind the current playoff points leader. And that's the driver that we're getting ready to talk to right now, the guy that brings it home in the runner-up position, Brian Schilling.
User was moved
Hey,
to
Brian,
your
Andrew, and
channel.
Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, what's going on?
All right, so we just talked moments ago with playoff driver Richard Martin. You came into this race with all the momentum of the victory last week. In the conversation for this victory, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked him because obviously we know it's not a one-and-done race, highest finisher wins the championship format anymore. It's 2 races here in this final round. Points are important. With the situation that there was, the 38-24 quite a ways back, how aggressive were you willing to be for this checkered flag, or were you kind of pulling in the reins a little bit just to make sure that you got the maximum points for the 4 truck?
Yeah, I would say the latter. I knew with it was just going to be me and Demar up there. I knew Ronnie had some issues on pit road, Joe connection issues, and I think had a bad pit stop. So I didn't want to do anything real crazy, but knew I couldn't get myself into trouble and had an opportunity to be able to potentially just race one guy next week compared to 4.
So next week, a racetrack that you're very familiar with. Just last week, you went to Victory Lane. So what is the confidence level since you are the previous winner at that venue going into this battle for the championship next week, looking for what would end up being your second championship in 3 seasons?
Um, I I don't know. I prefer Talladega over BSR for some reason, but I'll take the success I've had at BSR. I don't feel like I'm better there, but it's treated me well, and then it's treated me bad too. So I I just got to keep rolling with what I'm been given here the last few weeks, and just take the momentum and just do the best I can with it.
Now, obviously, we know super speedways are unpredictable, even from one week to the next, from one lap to the next. But here tonight, we almost had a couple of times where the field got bunched back up with a caution flying, but outside of the initial caution, we ended up going green the remainder of the race. It came down to execution. We saw yourself, McClure, Metallic, and Nofsker seem to really work well together, completely control this race up until the end. Are you planning or strategizing maybe for a race similar to that next week? Do you think it will look a little bit different being the finale with, a lot of drivers trying to end out the season with a checkered flag? I mean, as of right now, where are you in terms of strategy for next week?
Anytime I can surround myself with, those three guys, I feel like anything, anything is possible. Chuck is one of those guys. Me and him have each other's backs. He'll do, we'll push each other. And Timmy, same thing. He's always got my back when needed, and I've got his back. So
Before I let Andrew ask some questions, if he has any, I just want to ask because I kind of thought maybe this was the case, but just like a little confirmation. Was pushing the 17 to the front tonight a receipt for last week?
uh, kind of, yeah, yeah. I mean, I owe him a lot more than he owes me for things. I still that last season, or not last season, the last championship I won was directly on him pushing me.
Andrew, you got any questions?
Only one, and of course, congrats on the result. But I just wanted to kind of get some insight on what went into the strategy of pitting the second time by under that only yellow. Just trying to open the door for some more strategy down the road.
No, it was basically to lead a lap. It looked like when went single file early. I'm like, ooh, this might be tough to get up there and lead a lap. So I'm like, you know what? It's early enough. Go up there, lead a lap, which turned out to be obviously led the most laps, anyways. But you never know; it's unpredictable. I could have gotten wrecked the lap after. So you just got to take your points when you can get them.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, good job, man.
Well, taking
Thank
the
you.
points indeed. He ends up getting as just said, the bonus point for leading the most laps. He's got a 2-point advantage over Richard Martin going into the finale next week. Before we let you go here, Brian, the floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
All right. First of all, thank you to Jason Scheck, 260 Motorsports, for putting these on this year, for sponsoring the series. Congratulations to Chuck. Well deserved. I know you've had an up and down season. Glad to see you in victory lane. DMR, excellent job. You're always there at the end. Good consistent runs. That's what gets you close in points like you are. Thanks to Tim, Josh. Josh, I know you get real racy at the end, so no, not mad. Understand you're doing your thing. And thank you guys for the broadcast. Excellent job. I had it on in the background during the race. And thank you everybody that comes out every week. Admins, racers. It's always a fun time.
Well, Brian Schilling, the highest finisher of the championship for here tonight in second place. He'll look to close it out with a championship next week at Talladega, or make correction, at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway, as he brings it home runner-up here tonight at Talladega Super Speedway. Congratulations on the great result there, Brian. Best of luck next week.
Thank you.
User was moved
And
out
before
of
we
your
talk with
channel.
our race winner, just make a little amend to a statement that I believe I've been saying for the last couple of weeks. For Brian Schilling, it would actually be, if he's able to win the championship next week, it's his second championship in 4 seasons. I thought that he won the championship back in season 58. It was actually season 57, but a little food for thought. Brian Schilling, the season that he won that championship, season 57, he ended up winning the season finale. So he might be able to double down in that regard here in season 60. Let's go down to victory lane. Multi-time winner on the season now is Chuck McClure.
User was moved to
Chuck,
your
it's Andrew and
channel.
Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Well, man, I'll tell you what. A lot of drivers coming into tonight just trying to end out the season with a checkered flag. You now jump into the multi-win category with your second checkered flag of the season. But, man, we saw a lot of moving and shaking up there at the front. A lot of alliances. You had those 2 competitors for the championship in the middle of all of that. I mean, it was wild for us up here in the booth. How nerve-wracking was it for you down there behind the wheel?
Honestly, I just kept watching the F2 to see how close that second pack was getting. They eventually caught us, of course, and just I trusted Schilling and Tim back behind me, but yeah, I was watching behind me a lot more than I was out front.
Yeah, we ended up seeing that move that you made eventually for the race win. Got to the top side of the 43 there going into turn 3. How difficult is it to be able to throw blocks when you have that few trucks behind you, not knowing like where the different alliances are going to be?
Yeah, that was I just got lucky. Um I had to get down in front of Dilmore when I did. I hated to leave Schilling, but I got to do what I got to do. And I knew he was going to be running strong. We're trying to get him finishing well. Proud of Demar for running good too. He did a great job.
You talked about keeping an eye on that second pack, and we were watching the progress of them trying to reel you guys in. Took them a long time to be able to catch up, get a whiff of draft to be able to make it a bigger pack. We ended up seeing a couple of times where the caution flag almost came out. What were your thought process there on some of those times of, maybe that huge lead that the four of you had been able to build up suddenly dwindling away?
Oh, my heart sunk when I hear so they're spinning back there, and I'm like, oh no, we got such a good thing going here, and luckily it didn't. It played out the way I'd hoped it would, and things are good now.
So obviously picking up a checkered flag before the close of the season. One more race left. So, do we maybe see the 17 victory lane for a third time? Make it a three-way tie for most wins on the season next week at BSR?
I certainly hope so. I like checker flags. I like championships more, but I'm out of that. So yeah, let's go get more checkered flags.
I'm going to see if my broadcast colleague here, Andrew's got any questions for you.
Honestly, I got really nothing. Just congrats on the win, man. And if I'm not up here with Seth next week, hoping I can mix it up with you as well next week.
I appreciate that, Andrew.
All right. Well, Chuck, congratulations on the job well done here tonight. Out in front when it mattered the most in the closing stages of this one to pick up your second checkered flag of the season. Before we let you get back to your celebrating, we're going to hand the mic over to you for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
I appreciate you guys putting this on. FRN is top notch broadcast. It's awesome to watch again. And owners and admins at RTG, Josh, Bones, Prime, all the admins, Rodney for the magic paint. He put sprinkles in it again, I think. And all my family and friends at Marshall County Schools. And uh, we can't forget about the guys in Pearl Harbor years and years ago. The guys in the military that lost their lives. We got to remember them as well.
Absolutely. Well, Chuck McClure here this evening. He brings it home P1 at Talladega Super Speedway. He'll look to get his third win of the season to end out the year next week at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Chuck, go and enjoy that victory. We look forward to seeing what you're able to do in next week's finale.
I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
User
Chuck
was moved out
McClure,
of your channel.
multiple time winner on the season. That puts him with Joe DeSpirito, Rodney Sullins, and Brian Schilling. They've all gone to victory lane more than once this year. Schilling and Sullins 3 times, Chuck and DeSpirito now twice. The points are in and pretty close to what I had projected. Brian Schilling 2 points over Richard Martin, Joe DeSpirito 13 points back, and Rodney Sullins 17 points back. And I think the biggest thing that puts the 38 and the 24 almost into the must-win category, well, maybe two things that put them in the must-win category. The first thing is we don't know what the field size is going to look like next week. Here tonight, 30 drivers took the green flag. I believe near the beginning of the season, we had 38, 39, 40 drivers took the green flag. Obviously, as the season winds down and more drivers aren't in the championship conversation, they may go to another series where they're in a championship battle. So the field size normally does dwindle down. But another thing here, too, and I talk about this all the time, Andrew, is it seems like no matter who we end up having in our championship four, they always seem to find each other in the same area of the pack on the racetrack, whether it be at the front, the middle, the back of the pack. So there's not a whole lot of opportunity to gain points. That's why the must-win situation kind of seems to be prevalent for those two championship competitors, the DeSpirito and Sullen situation.
Absolutely. It's as I was alluding to earlier, when you've got guys that make it this far in the championship, it's for a reason. And I mean, sure, as I said earlier, 50% luck, 50% skill. Well, there's a lot of skill that's going into that. You have guys that are consistently finishing up front, and those guys include Schilling and Martin, and typically Solons and Despirito, at least Despirito, whenever his internet is cooperating with him. So just with that in mind, that is why I'm heavily leaning toward why, especially for Solons, it is going to be a must win, I think, unless something catastrophic happens to the 4 or the 43. Despirito, he's going to need some luck to fall his way, but I would say he's all but a must win as it stands. As long as his car isn't getting abducted by aliens, as I think some other broadcasters used to say. As long as that doesn't happen, he will have a great chance at this championship still, um, given some good luck, of course, with the 4 and the 43. But those two, it's basically just going to be whoever finishes ahead of the other, and that is going to be exciting to watch.
And it's also interesting too. We obviously talk about the random qualifying. Drivers don't have the opportunity to go out there and determine where they're going to start in this race. It is all based off of the random draw. Schilling and Martin, the two drivers that we're going to probably have our main focus on next week as to who's going to outdo the other for the championship. They started this race inside the top 10, Schilling in 8th, Richard Martin in 9th. They obviously would have, by consequence, had pit stalls further up towards the exit of pit road. DeSpirito was 15th, and Sullins was 20th, so, not terrible, but how much of a factor do you think that random qualifying is going to come into play next week as well?
I think it's going to have more of an impact as far as the pit stall selection. If you have a stall that's much further up pit road, that's definitely going to help you. If you have one that's much further back, especially if you get if we end up with a field of near 40 cars, that's tough. If you end up drawing like 37th, trying to get slowed down and in your stall is brutal. I mean, we also did see that as far from a track position perspective, it's really not going to matter much because Schilling went from like 19th to the lead after that restart in a matter of like even before the next round of pit stops. So as far as getting up to the front from those starting positions, it's not going to be much of an issue. It will probably play more of a factor on pit road, and of course, guys keeping it clean on pit road because we saw a lot of chaos there, as does tend to happen when you have guys with slightly different braking zones trying to slow it down there. That's what I'll be looking out for.
Well, Talladega has certainly given us a very interesting, very intriguing storyline heading into next week with the championship hanging in the balance. Brian Schilling looking to gain another championship. Richard Martin looking for his first. And Joe DeSpirito, Ronnie Sullins will look to make a last-ditch effort to stay in the conversation. We hope you guys will join us for that next Thursday night at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. 9 p.m. Eastern Time is when the green flag will fly. Do not miss it. I did mention last week that we were going to be having a broadcast this Saturday night. This is actually one night that we will not be broadcasting the Talladega Night Shake and Bake series. We will be off that evening. We will then, the following Saturday, be back for, I believe it is race number 6 for Talladega Nights. So just to amend that, in case anybody was planning on tuning in on Saturday. Andrew, it was great to have you up here in the booth here tonight. Obviously, as I alluded to, Andrew does broadcasts over on his channel. I believe he's got one that's going to be coming up middle of January. I'm going to give you an opportunity here to shout out your channel, Andrew.
Yeah, Top Dragster on YouTube. Do some off and on broadcasts myself. Not nearly to the par that you do, Seth. I'm just gonna be honest. But yep, we're gonna be doing a couple of NNS CRA series races in the next few months. The regular season finale for their winter series, and then the outright season finale, which is a Josh Mercurio's series. So I'm excited for that. Of course, if anyone does want a race of theirs in their league broadcasted, certainly hit me up on Facebook or on YouTube or wherever you can find me. But otherwise, yep, just having fun with this. That's the bottom line, getting the word out. And Seth, I will also take this opportunity to say thank you a ton for having me in this. Seriously, calling a race, whether it's on my channel or here on FRN, calling them with you is so much fun. I really can't tell you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And for those that don't know, it was nice to kind of flip reverse this on him because the last time I broadcasted with him over on his channel, we went through a full-length Daytona race. So nice to get him in the FRN booth here and then kind of flip the script on him. But yeah, Andrew, great to have you up here in the booth. Appreciate you taking the time here to do that here tonight. And thanks to everybody that tuned in here this evening. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage of race number 14 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. Next Thursday night, the championship is decided. We will see you then. For Andrew Miller, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your evening, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you